welcome back to Rethink Weight Loss. It's day 4 of the challenge, and we've been making mindset shifts day after day after day, and we wrap up tomorrow, and my hope is that you'll get a real shift in perspective that allows you to really discover how truly healthy eating is completely different from what you've grown up thinking, so that you can actually get that natural reset to your slender, healthy weight that comes with truly healthy eating. You don't have to do surgeries and take pills and do anything really drastic. What we're doing with truly healthy eating is different, and it can take a little bit of a warrior spirit. And today I'm going to talk about why that is a bit more. Why does it take a warrior spirit to eat in a truly healthy way in these times? I'm glad you're back. If you're watching this later, please engage by email or on Facebook. So day 4, Rethink Weight Loss, we want to escape treats, and embrace truly healthy eating. That sounds really provocative, right? I don't want to escape treats. I want to keep treats, but not let them hurt me, is sort of ultimately what I was hoping. I want to keep my treats, but I don't want them to have a negative effect on my body or my mental health or my life in any way. Well, yeah. And we're going to talk about why we have that kind of undue attachment to non-nutritious food-like substances that we call treats. We're on day 4 of the 5-day challenge to a slender, healthy eating psychology. Yesterday, I encouraged you to get wise to the lies of the food industry. So notice the ways that the food industry is telling you these things they're just treats. You're just going to have a little of them. It's no big deal. They're kind of good for you. You're going to pick the healthier alternative treats, and that's going to be good for you. And we're going to tell you on the packaging, and we're going to tell you how wholesome they are in our advertising. We're going to tell you they're pretty healthy. You don't have to worry about them, right? So we all know we shouldn't eat too much of those non-nutritious treats, but we also think they're relatively benign, and we should always have a little. So we're going to we talked yesterday about why having a little may not be the answer, because the amount that seems like a little to us has changed dramatically, right? All right, so this slide again, what works for natural weight loss, not forcing your body, but naturally resetting your weight and keeping it there, right? It just lasts. What works for that is truly healthy eating. So you're ready to hear a little bit more about what is truly healthy eating? We don't want to be confused or misled on this point. And I feel now, I look at it, we're very misled about what's healthy eating. And so most of us think we're eating pretty healthfully, and we're not. We're not close. And I hear this from every person who comes into the Slender for Good program. I wasn't eating this healthfully. This is different, and it makes so much sense, right? And I can see why it's making a difference for my body. So what is truly healthy eating? Well, we've heard a lot about constituent nutrients. So once it became possible for scientists to find these constituent nutrients like carbs or cholesterol or antioxidants in foods, they started telling us, oh, this has got antioxidants, this has low cholesterol, this has low carbs, etc. And now, instead of eating food, we're eating constituent nutrients. We're eating things that have been highly processed, and then the food industry tells us, but it has these nutrients in it. And this is not working out well for us. There are scores of studies saying that eating processed foods isn't good for us. Now, here's what I thought. When I would hear that, I would say, well, I don't eat that much of that, first of all. I don't ever go to McDonald's, for example. I don't eat fast food. Fast food is correlated with really fast detriment to our health. But I thought, I don't eat that much of that stuff, right? So, and I also thought the issue with processed foods is they're adding too many chemicals and preservatives and things that aren't good for my body. Well, that's an issue. But the even bigger issue is we took a real whole food and we broke it down. And now our body doesn't know what to do with it. Now we've concentrated the sugars in the food, even if it's something that doesn't taste sweet, like crackers or bread or pasta, etc., or pretzels or etc. So there's just scores of studies showing that having ultra-processed foods in our diet is highly related to cardiometabolic disease. It's highly related to diabetes, to cancer, dementia, inflammation, etc. All the diseases of aging, the chronic diseases of aging that most of us are tending to get, are highly correlated with eating too much processed foods, right? So this idea of looking for the constituent nutrients in the food has supported this move towards eating way too many processed foods. Who remembers? Do you remember what the percent of our diet now is processed foods on average? It was 73% that researchers found in the UK and the US. And it might be less in places like France, but generally the processed food diet has moved all over the world, right? So we're looking at packaging that says this is low fat, this is low cholesterol, this is high in antioxidants, and we're going, those things all sound good. We're going to do better if we want to do healthy eating to focus on eating real food. Focus on eating food, not nutrients. Does that make sense? Hello, welcoming people back that I haven't welcomed back yet. Glad that you came back. Hello. So scores of studies show that a diet rich in fruits and vegetables reduces the risk of dying from all those Western diseases. So I discovered 4 fundamental principles that predictably and reliably lead to sustainable weight loss and this package of health benefits that relates to all those chronic diseases. And also just functioning better, feeling better, having more energy, being able to sleep better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been talking about 2 of these, right? The 2 that I mention a lot are these kind of general principles we all kind of know, but we don't understand them well enough to be doing it. And this is where, as I started digging into the research and finding the same results over and over, I started going, oh, I thought I was doing this, but I'm not doing that, right? All right, so the 2 I often mention of these 4 fundamental principles are eat abundant, highly nutritious foods and minimize or eliminate cravingful, highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances. It's really a darn shame that those have become treats to us, that we have come to value them so highly, to fall in love with them, to feel like they're the best things to eat. But I'm going to talk about why that naturally happened to us and why it's going to take a bit of a warrior spirit to stand up against that. So scores of studies show specifically a diet rich in fruits and vegetables reduces the risk of dying from all those Western diseases. And in countries where people eat a pound of fruits and vegetables a day, the rate of cancer is cut in half. Why would that be? Well, there's at least 2 reasons I can think of that would be supported by the research. One is that we're getting the nutrients our body needs to be well and focus on fighting cancer. As long as we're putting toxins into our system that our body has to cope with, that's what it's going to cope with. It's not going to have the freedom to be focusing on fighting cancer. It's going to be fighting those toxins. So this is a gut-related issue. We get so much nutrients from fruits and vegetables when we eat them whole, because it's eating them whole with the fiber lattice intact that makes our body be able to access all the nutrients. At least another reason is that it is crowding out the non-nutritious food-like substances that are toxic. So one author I read, I think it was Michael Pollan, he talked about how humans seem to thrive throughout human history, millennia. Humans have thrived in a variety of environments. This is one reason we've been so successful. If we live by the sea, we eat fish. If we're able to hunt animals where we live and eat more meat, we're able to thrive. What it looks like doesn't work well for us, we do not thrive, is with the Western diet, with a lot of highly processed foods. So the message is we can eat lots of different foods and be successful. We kind of sense that, we kind of feel that, right? But processing breaks down the nutrients in the food and concentrates the sugar. It also makes the food really cheap and really fast to prepare, right? doesn't take time to prepare, really fast to eat. And our brain, our primitive brain says fast is good, which is one reason we're at risk of drug addiction and addiction to processed foods. Our primitive brain says that's good, do that, right? So eating real food comes to feel unnecessarily difficult and time consuming. And now it takes a bit of a warrior spirit to say, I don't care. I'm going to take the time for that. That matters for my health, right? So change your mind about processed foods being treats. We grew up hearing these are treats. We can't have too much of them. They're a little bit special. We should have them at the end of the meal. We have to eat our vegetables first. We have this whole cultural ethos around processed food. But we do end up treating them like they're the most important, the most valuable. So we need to be intentional about changing our mind about this. For me, one thing I did is I studied self-hypnosis. I started really purposely training my mind. Those things aren't good. I think they're going to make me throw up. Those are sickly sweet. And so I know how to change the psychology, but it really does take some intention, right? Because we grew up hearing these are treats, which sounds like these are the best things. These are the things that we earn, right? That we deserve. But they're linked to systemic inflammation and cancer. They're linked to hormone dysregulation, which means more hunger, more anxiety, more trouble sleeping. They're linked to insulin resistance, which means we put on excess fat and our insulin systems don't function right. Our metabolism doesn't function right. We get slow and sluggish and feel old. We get excess fat storage from insulin resistance. We're more likely to get hardened arteries, heart disease, and stroke from eating processed food. We're more likely to get cancer, a lot more. And we're much more likely to get diabetes. Also dementia, which some people now call diabetes type 3. So there's more and more understanding in the scientific community that systemic inflammation from giving our gut the wrong things, from feeding the gut microbiome wrong, is related to diabetes. It's related to cancer. It's related to dementia. There's also a lot of ideas that it might be related to multiple sclerosis and those kinds of diseases. So how do we change our mind about the value of treats? I love to share Coleen's story because Coleen placed a very high value on her wine and on her sweets. And that had been all her life. And she never was very, very overweight, but her weight was up and down for her whole life. She would alternate between overindulging. Oh, I just really got to have some wine. I really got to have some, I think it was maple sugar that she was especially kind of in love with. And then she would get overwhelmed with the weight gain. And then she would restrict for a while to compensate. So her weight just kept going up and down and up and down. I think she was about 60 when she came to me and she said, I really only want to lose 4 pounds, but I want to stop this eating and drinking pattern that is contributing to the weight going up and down. I don't think it's healthy. She said, my mom now has dementia, and I'm afraid that I could be headed that way if I don't figure out what healthy eating is now and get committed to it. It wasn't going to get easier by accident, right? So she really wanted to minimize the risk of dementia and do her best. But she was highly attached to her wine. She was highly attached to craveable foods and drinks. And she was really scared. This is going to be really hard and really sad to give these things up. She also recognized, I feel like they're really important, but I also feel like this is a really stressful way to live. So looking back, she says, holding on to those treats left her a distraught, joyless mess, unable to cope with life's challenges. When she started embracing slender weight eating, she really became pretty happy to discover I can thoroughly enjoy nutritious foods, right? She went through the Crave the Good system. She got to a weight she never dreamed of. It was 14 pounds less than when she came to me, but she loves this weight. She hadn't seen it since childhood. So she feels free, slim, and fantastic eating this way. And pretty quickly, she stopped missing the non-nutritious food-like substances that had felt really, really, really important that she was really scared to let go of. I love showing these pictures of her because one of the things she emphasizes is her mood has completely transformed. She used to have anxiety issues. She used to have seasonal depression issues. She doesn't have any of that anymore. She just feels much calmer and happier eating this way. And she has a new confidence about living a healthy, long, self-determined future where she doesn't develop dementia and need people to take care of her. What I love is because I'm Facebook friends with her, I get to see how much she is taking advantage of her energy, how well she feels now, traveling all over the world with her husband. She just got her happiness back. She got her joy back. So any feelings we have that my joy comes from these processed treats, we really want to slow down and look at that and question it. That's not joy, that's dopamine. So let's talk about how the processed food is designed to hook us. I'm reading a book I'm finding really helpful about that. There's a lot of books about this, but the one I'm really enjoying right now is Michael Moss's Hooked: Food, Free Will, and How the Food Giants Exploit Our Addictions. So I know for me, eventually getting the idea that this over attachment to these highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances, considering them treats, considering them very important at the end of every meal. And even at the end of every meal, feeling like, I don't think I quite got the specialness. I think I need to have a little more of this and a little more of that. This is something disordered in my eating. It's very normal in our current society, but it wasn't serving me. It didn't look healthy. It's not how I want to feel about food, right? So Michael Moss talks about there's so much research showing that food can be even more addictive than alcohol or drugs or cigarettes. So our brains are primed to get super excited about fast calories, fast, cheap calories. Wow, I just walked into that store, found something really fast, ate it really fast. That's exactly what I want. So our brains are ready to be super excited about fast calories. We have to be quite intentional to go, fast calories are not really what I want. I really want nutrition. I really want to feed my body what it needs and avoid that. But we're standing against the part of our brain that evolved a long time ago to be very, very excited about fast, cheap calories. So what is making these foods addictive? We're looking for a neurobiological response. So this, oh, that was good. Think about all those noises, all those feelings that go with it. That, oh, yummy. I remember that with Diet Coke. I certainly remember it with wine. I remember it with anything sweet at the end of the meal. I would have this excitement beforehand, and then I would have this burst of pleasure. And I started realizing that's a dopamine response. It's not that I don't want any dopamine, but maybe I'm getting an excess of dopamine and my body is not doing well with the amount of sugar or the amount of dopamine. So what happens when we get a big dopamine response, when something feels very special, very exciting, extra super exciting, is we get this salience effect. So the brain says, whoa, that was good. That was fast. That was exciting. And the salience effect communicates to us that was important. Wherever you got that, find it again tomorrow. And so it primes our brain to focus on those things, look for those things, wherever those things are in the environment, find them. This seems really important to survival. So this is super dangerous for us because this is not helpful for our survival in this food environment. This is detrimental to our living our best life and feeling well to the end. But our brain isn't designed to make us feel well to the end. It's designed to make sure we survive in times of low nutrition. We talked about that yesterday. So that this feels very important feeling is such a trap for us. You have to like notice it and go, is it though? Is it really, really, really important for my survival? I don't think so. I don't think that I'm going to believe that as it happens in my brain. I'm going to try to change that. So the big dopamine response drives us to get more. It's a drive to get more kind of feeling. So that's part of what's going on. It's part of the addiction response in the human brain. We're addicted to processed foods now, and it feels really hard to step away from them, right? The next thing that happens, because it's an excess of dopamine, our body doesn't like excess, right? So it's liking the dopamine, and then it's saying, you know what, we're getting too much dopamine, altogether too much. We got to do something about this. And so there's this counteracting, counterbalancing response in our brain to down-regulate dopamine. It's that drug addict thing. So you see somebody getting into drug addiction and you're like, you don't look happy at all doing this. This doesn't look like, you look completely miserable. Now you're living in the street, whatever. Why don't you just stop? Well, one thing that happens is dopamine down regulates when we're in an addiction state. I believe this is what's happening in our food environment. So not only am I getting excess dopamine, excess excitement, feeling like this is important and I'm driven to get more, but then I get this counteracting response in my brain of dopamine down regulation. So dopamine is a chemical that gives us energy to go do stuff, to go search for stuff, to get out of bed, right? To learn something, to go for a walk. But when we get excess, then our brain down regulates. It starts shutting down the dopamine receptors so that we're not getting too much dopamine to our brain. And what that feels like is, oh, I feel so dull. I feel so sluggish. There's both an energy side to the sluggishness because our calories are being used to store fat instead of make us energized. And then there's this brain chemistry response, which is we're not going to let so much excitement happen here. So now the only thing that feels like it gives us any pleasure is the drug or the food. Now life is kind of gray and boring. I remember coming out of that, and I've now seen hundreds of clients come out of this where they start getting joy back in life. They start saying, you know, I'm noticing the birds singing again. I'm enjoying my husband and my kids again. One of my clients was saying last week, you know, my 13-year-old, I'm just so much more patient and so much more lighthearted with him. I just feel more relaxed about everything. So when we're not in an addiction state, going towards things that are damaging to us and then experiencing dopamine down regulation, life is, you know, it's challenging. It's also joyful. It's not these emotional ups and downs. So being in dopamine down regulation means we're in this big ups and downs. The only thing that gives us any pleasure now is the drug or the food. To see if you're feeling actually addicted, hooked, overly attached to things that aren't good for you, watch for certain behavioral responses, like getting anxious at the time of day you would usually eat or drink the thing. Oh, I'm really feeling like it's time to have that now. Feeling compelled. Oh, I wasn't going to have this today, but I am going to have this today. Very familiar with that. Maybe defensive of these things. I think we should keep a little. I think they're kind of important. And when you start, like I used to say, I'm going to have one glass of wine tonight and I'm going to stop. No, wasn't able to stop. I'm the same with sweets, pretty much the same with all kinds of processed foods. So those behavioral responses indicate that I'm in an addiction state with something. So how did our food get so troublesome? One thing, this is very cheap. Processed foods are cheap. And they're very profitable for the food industry. They're very shelf stable. Also, who took over the mega brands of processed foods? Philip Morris, you remember them from the cigarettes? There are still people smoking cigarettes, but way less. There's way less profit involved with putting out cigarettes, right? Ever since the government decided, no, this is causing addiction. It's causing disease. It's causing early deaths. It's causing an increase in expenses in our health system, right? So they started putting these warning labels. They started taxing cigarettes, etc. Philip Morris, the same people who were promoting cigarettes, are leading the mega brands of processed foods. So they know how to make everything sound like it's good, it's fine, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Don't overdo it. But have some, you got to have some, just moderate it, right? So it's an addictive substance and they're telling us to moderate it. That's not really how our brain and body works. that is putting us in a very stressful position. I'm going to use heroin, but I'm going to try not to use too much heroin. I mean, basically, I make it a little bit ridiculous, but that's pretty much what we're doing with the processed foods, right? So they put labels on the cravingful, highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances suggesting they're healthy. So I was looking at a research study published in Nature Food, and the researchers worked to predict the degree of food processing. So I'm not talking about processing just in terms of additives. I'm talking about processing in terms of taking a food and processing it into something completely different that does different things in our bodies. They got a database of over 50,000 food items across Walmart, Target, and Whole Foods. And they discovered that 73% of the US food supply is ultra processed. And then the foods are marketed with labels suggesting they're healthy. So we're eating way more of these than we realize. Have I sold you on that point? So just a little picture here again, just reiterating how addictive foods like sugar produce addiction. We eat the sugar or other processed foods. It doesn't have to be sweet, but the brain sees it as a reward. Whoa, that was good. Yay. And that gives us cravings for more. So we get more reward, and then we get sensitization. So it starts seeking more of that kind of reward, more. And then we eat more sugar because that's what we're feeling is the right thing to do. And then dopamine down regulates. And now it takes more to get the same pleasure. So that's why people report, it's not even like I'm getting the kind of pleasure that I used to get from this. It's more like I don't get any pleasure unless I have this. I need this. I feel empty and wrong. Just to not feel like total crap, I need to have this every day, every meal, etc. It's more like you're trying to scratch an itch. I have to scratch this itch. Like I just feel needy. I just feel not okay. I need the sugar, right? This is an addiction response. You can escape it with intention. That's what your brain does. What does the culture do? The culture says, just have a little, just don't overdo it, right? Oh yeah. So for anybody who has not yet, I encourage you to schedule your own slender exploratory call with me. If you feel like, okay, these are good ideas, but I need more guidance about how do I exactly do this, that's exactly what my program does. It's exactly how, it's exactly why. We also really figure out, well, how do I make it my habit to do what actually is going to make a dramatic change for my health? So you can choose to eat abundant, highly nutritious foods as you get this mindset that I'm not going to argue that a little toxic, addictive stuff is what I want. I'm really going to move towards eating what's good for my body. So I'm not going to pretend, I'm not going to fool myself, and I'm not going to let the food industry fool me. Everything I eat or drink is either helping or harming my body. And I'm going to get more and more committed to more like 100%, not 30% or 50%. I'm going to move towards 100% of my food and drink being actually helpful to my body. So that really made this dramatic change for me. So many of the people that I see really succeed with this make that kind of determination. I'm just doing this. It's just easier to just do this rather than try to hold on to my old ways and straddle two paths. But what about just a little? Can't I just have a little? We love the idea of moderation. I think that's because it's what's been promoted, because it's easy, because it's cheap, because it's profitable to the people who are promoting it. But if you're actually having an addiction response to something that's harmful to your body, whether it's drugs or alcohol or processed foods, you're going to be driven to want more. So trying to have a little is setting yourself up for this stressful situation. I was just going to have a little. Okay, I'm going to have a little more, but tomorrow I'm not going to have any, right? So you end up in this stressful battle over, I don't want to have too much of this. You get driven to have more. It takes on too much importance in your life. You'll start to see it everywhere. You'll feel drawn to it. If you try to say no, it'll feel stressful and wrong. You get yourself out of that by abstaining for a period of time, right? And it's partly because in a complex adaptive system like our body, small causes have big down the line effects. People talk about it in the literature as the butterfly effect, right? So a butterfly flaps its wings over by Japan, and over off of Peru, they have some kind of big event that cascaded, right? Same thing with the way that we're eating. So people ask me, okay, well, what is the eating approach? So we're saying the simple truth is a natural reset to your slender, healthy body comes from truly healthy eating. It's easy, it's simple, it makes sense. It's just not what we grew up learning. So what is it? Well, I've been saying these two fundamental principles, and I've been helping people do this for the last 4 or 5 years. And I've found that getting super clear what that means, super specific on the definitions, how much proteins and fats, how much fruits and vegetables makes a huge difference. You heard earlier the idea that eating a pound of fruits and vegetables, not juiced, but really eating them, cuts the cancer risk in half for the population. That's huge, but that's a lot of fruits and vegetables, right? So getting super clear and specific on the definitions makes a huge difference. What are the truly healthy foods? What are the cravingful, highly processed food-like substances? How much do we actually have to eat of those to get big results that stick? I love studying that stuff. It helps me stay on the path that works. So what can you do to bust out of this mindset that those are just treats and I really, really want to keep them in my diet, but I'll just try to have a little? One is start caring more about your future self. You know, when we're choosing something that's bad for us and saying, I'll do better tomorrow, we are pushing all our problems off on our future self. Okay, when I'm 80, when I'm 70, I'll do better with this. When I'm 80, I'll do better with this. Really? I could see that's not true. Your health is declining. Your weight is going up and your health is declining. And you are pushing all the problems off onto your future self as though she's going to be healthier and stronger and more able to cope with stuff. No, I need to start caring about her like she's me, right? It's an interesting mindset that can make a big difference. So recognize that lasting results for health and a slender weight come from consistent good habits and get started, right? Looking for a way you can establish healthy eating that's real and fall in love with it. The exercise I'm giving for today for getting a mindset shift that takes you the next step is the I deserve this mindset. Catch it. Wait, what am I saying? I started noticing I was only saying I deserve this about things that were harmful for me. And I was saying it about things that were addictive. It took me a while to recognize that. But it started to hurt that I was saying I deserve this only about things that were bad for me. What is that? And so I remember when I was in sort of a pause state, I'm going to change this, but first I'm going to really get more honest about what's going on. I would hear I wasn't going to have this, but it's making me really anxious. I am going to have this. I deserve this. I would say, okay, you can have it in 10 minutes, like my wine, right? But first you're going to sit and write down, what are you saying to yourself? What does this mean? So I started doing this side-by-side thing. Well, here's what I say I deserve, but what would I really, in my heart of hearts, say that I desire and deserve in life? Because I was seeing this trade-off. I deserve this treat, but I can barely walk anymore. I deserve this treat, but I'm 60 pounds overweight and putting off dating, right? I'm putting off dating until what, my 70s? Like, this isn't working the way I thought it should be working. So as you work through what you desire and deserve in life, imagine that you can get that by eating and craving the good foods and consistently enjoying an abundance of the highly nutritious foods and how that could change your life. So I am envisioning hiking in the mountains in my 80s again, because I've got the ability to walk back. I got so much less inflammation in my system. That all changed. That was from committing to healthy eating. So I'm really encouraging you to get a shift in your mindset to, maybe I am overvaluing the highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances. And maybe the corollary is I'm really undervaluing highly nutritious foods. And that's a big driver of the poor results, the results I'm not liking about my life. So maybe I can change my whole perspective on this, right? It takes a little intention and awareness. And in a way, we don't want to put the energy into it. But what if the payoff is amazing? And what if the energy is more of an upfront issue and then it gets easier and easier and easier? So I was pushing for close to 100% real, whole, highly nutritious foods. And I could see it's realistic and it could be life-changing, right? I deserve better than these highly processed food-like substances, than a moment of dopamine hit. I deserve to live my fullest life, healthy and independent, able to make my own choices, even about what to eat, for as long as possible. So come back tomorrow. We'll get more into we'll finish up describing the path to healthy eating habits and living slender for good. I'm glad you guys were here. I hope to see you tomorrow. Take care.